Okay, Avengers Endgame. Don't watch this if you haven't seen the movie. That's it. You've been warned. Okay, so the timeline aspect of Avengers Endgame was weird. And it didn't have to be as weird as it was. I appreciate them bringing Thanos back for the final fight because it obviously would have felt weird and empty if we'd been building up Thanos for like 100 years and he just like wasn't there. So I'm not complaining about that aspect, and I'm not really that upset about the whole weird time travel, but I don't think it had to be as complicated as they made it. And here's why. Before I explain the whole Avengers timeline and why I think it's weird, I briefly want to explain a perfect time travel concept in my mind. Because I feel like it, and I can do whatever I feel like. Okay, so first of all, the season 3 episode 10, 11, whatever, episode Blink of Doctor Who is a near perfect example of time travel and the concept of permanence, I guess, within time travel. Basically, if you travel back in time, you always traveled back in time. If you traveled to 1962, you were always going to be in 1962 at some point. And you traveling there doesn't change anything, but instead fulfills what was already going to happen. For example, in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, I'm going to reference the movie because it has a better sort of like visual representation of the always gonna happen concept. So, don't like crucify me. But basically, in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, there's this part where they're in Hagrid's hut and they're waiting, like they're trying to console him before Buckbeak gets executed, blah, blah, blah. So Hermione is sort of standing there at the kitchen near the window when a rock comes flying through and breaks something, and she looks up to see what it was, and she sees the Ministry members and Dumbledore like coming down the lawn approaching Hagrid's hut, and they're like, oh my god, we gotta go. We're not supposed to be here. So they sneak out the back door, narrowly avoiding the Ministry officials and Dumbledore. And they sneak up the hill and blah blah blah, a bunch of stuff happens. Eventually, they realize that they have to go back in time in order to save Sirius. And again, blah blah blah, not necessary. But the point is, they end up going back 3 hours to the exact moment when they were in the hut. So now, instead of being in the hut, Harry and Hermione are outside of the hut watching their past selves. And my air conditioner came on, but I don't care. Okay, so as they're watching their past selves, Hermione realizes, where's the rock? Where's the little thing that distracted me so that I saw the Ministry officials coming? It's not here, and the Ministry officials are coming, and we're going to be seen. Wait, it was me. I was the one who threw the rock, because it wasn't that they're going to the past to change it. They're going to the past because, they are going to change it, but like they were always in that moment in time. So Hermione throws the rock and distracts herself, and her past self sees, the Ministry officials, and it's a loop. It was always going to happen that way because that's how it had already happened. Because when you go back to a moment in time, that moment in time already happened. You were already there. You just didn't know it. And that's exactly how the Doctor Who episode of Blink works. It all matches up. It was all going to happen that way. It all already happened that way. The end. So that's how time travel, in my opinion, should always work. You have the type of Marty McFly time travel where it's like you go to the past and you change everything. It's the kind of cockamamie bullcrap you see in like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, where it's like, oh, you change one thing and everybody's personalities change. It gives no integrity to the characters. I don't personally like that kind, but it's fine because it's mostly used for comedic effect or really bad screenplays, but whatever. The point is, that's not the kind of time travel in Avengers was very wishy-washy and very poorly explained, if I say so. Again, I don't really care that it was poorly explained, but I can't stop thinking about it. And then I thought they explained it pretty well. At first, when they introduced the whole time travel concept, I was like, oh god, not this after-school special crap. But they explained it pretty well. They explained, like, okay, we're going to put the time stones exactly back where we took them so we don't even miss a beat. Everything will be the same. And then they kind of screwed that up in the 2012 bit with the Captain America and Loki escaping, and I don't think that made any sense, but whatever. I don't care, whatever. The point is, when the Ancient One, when she was like, oh, if you take the time stone, we'll branch off into another reality that sucks because we don't have the time stone to protect us. But like, isn't that exactly what happens in 2018 when Thanos destroys all the stones? So I don't really get that either. But anyways, Bruce is like, nah, it's cool. We're gonna bring the time stone back. Doctor Strange said it was fine, so don't worry about it. But then, so that I was cool with. I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense, more or less. But then Thanos left 2014 and got killed in 2023. So his personal timeline, that doesn't make any sense. His personal timeline was to live through 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then in 2018, he snaps his fingers. But if he gets killed, his physical 2014 self gets killed in 2023 by the Tony snap. How does he go on to complete his 2014 to 2018 timeline if he no longer physically exists? And I think it would have been really easy to fix that. All you had to do was do a snap that instead of dusting them, sent them back to their time. I mean, is that what he did? Did he send them back to their time? Because it did not seem like that. And Nebula killed her past self, which again, I could have excused because she's like 98% robot and like 2% mean. So like you could just rebuild her. You have the parts. But you can't rebuild dusted Thanos. So that I don't get. I don't get what's going to happen with Gamora. I'm sure she'll show up in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. I read an article that tried to explain it. I don't think it made any sense to the article writer either because their article was very much like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so I don't think it made sense. Correct me if I'm wrong, but all the arguments I've heard so far haven't really, stuck a landing for me. So if you have any explanations as to how Thanos' physical self was dusted, in 2014 physical self was dusted and yet somehow managed to complete, in my mind's eye, the time stone was like, sure, he's dusted, it's fine, just everyone fill in the gaps. And so when you rewatch Infinity War now, all the characters will still be doing the exact same thing, except they'll be fighting air because physical Thanos isn't there anymore. That's how I imagine it. Because the thing is, here's the other issue. If the time stone does, set everything correct, because that was kind of what the writer of this article I read was implying, was if the time stone goes back to where it's supposed to be, it makes sure that reality syncs up. But how does it know what reality? Because the time stone doesn't have a morality, does it? So it wouldn't be like, well, I'm going to reset I'm going to make sure everything syncs up to 2023 when they pluck me out of 2012, because that's when the good guys do something good with the time stone. So I'm not going to reset reality from there. How does the time stone know what should and shouldn't happen? Because that's what someone else was saying. They were like, oh, well, all that matters is that the time stone is in place. People and things don't really matter. But how does the time stone know what's correct? The other explanation is that the 2014 Thanos that leaves his time and goes to 2003 ended up, this is just something from my own brain, so it might be really dumb, but branches off his own alternate reality where he does not return to 2014, and so there's a reality where Thanos never returns, and that's not our reality, that's a different Thanos reality, and that reality is like the dark, or a different reality where he just never does the snap and everything's fine. Does that make sense? Yeah, I don't usually find time travel to be very confusing. I either find it to be really spot on or really dumb, but I don't usually find it, I guess I don't find this confusing, I just think it doesn't make sense. But please correct me, please explain to me how it does make sense, because I really enjoyed this movie, and I really liked the time travel aspect. It really made sense. It made sense to go back in order to go forward, considering where this movie led up to, all that. It made sense to me. I thought it was a really good way to wrap up all the storylines. I liked it. I liked pretty much every aspect of this movie, but I can't think or talk about anything else until this time travel business gets set up in my brain. So, Russo brothers, if you're listening, which, you probably are, could you please explain this to me? I really respect your work. Thank you. Goodbye.